Welcome to Narrative Nook Audio Tales, where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening. After saying her piece, she ignored the stunned Harvey Ellison and furious Snow Riddle as she took Lulu with her. This time, no one dared to stop her. After all, Harvey Ellison in a stupor. If he could not do anything to Nicole, then who else can deal with her? As they watched Nicole leaving just like that, everyone had a complicated look in their eyes. What did Nicole said to Harvey, so much so that he was stunned silly? They wondered. Even Snow was totally puzzled, and as she watched Harvey stood there looking at Nicole taking Lulu away, her temper flared as she roared, "Harvey, are you just letting them go like that?" Harvey was lost in thought at Nicole's words. She actually dared bring Grandpa up. What relationship does she have with him? "Harvey, I'm talking to you here." Seeing that he was still in a stupor, Snow got agitated. Harvey lost his patience and swept a chilly gaze at her. With that gaze alone, it made her feel like she had fallen into an ice cavern. Was he still that gentle Harvey Ellison? Why was he so terrifying? Harvey seemingly noticed her fear. The roiling in his eyes disappeared instantly as he said to her gently, "It seems like Nicole isn't receptive to my mediation. What should I do now?" Seeing that he returned to normal, Snow cautiously tugged his sleeve and asked, "Harvey, what were you thinking? What did she say to you?" Harvey gave her a cryptic glance, and as if he had subconsciously lifted his hand, he pulled his sleeve away from her without leaving a trace. He then smiled and said to her, "What can happen to me?" Seeing how he reacted, Snow then boldly asked, "Did she say something very unpleasant?" Harvey stretched his hand out as he fiddled with the cufflink on his right hand, as he casually said, "No matter, however, we need to take a good measure of this Nicole Wallace. At the very least, he needed to figure out who she really was." When Snow heard that, she thought that Harvey was going to teach Nicole a lesson. She could not help but be excited, yet she said without her expression betraying her thought, "But Harvey, we are all classmates. Making such a big move isn't nice, right?" Harvey glanced at her joyful face. Her every move would have made him feel good last time, yet when he looked at Snow being all submissive towards him now, he felt bored. He then said impassively, "Since she refused the gentle treatment, then she has no grounds to fault us." Snow gave him a surprised glance and nodded, "Yes, Nicole's the one who don't know her place. Teaching her a lesson is part of the course." Harvey did not respond as he just looked at her quietly, seemingly looking at someone else through her. After a while, he lifted his hand, as if wanting to smoothen her slightly messy hair, but eventually his hand landed somewhere else a distance away from her. He looked on at Snow as he said softly, "Snow, your hair is a little messy. Go to the washroom and tidy it up. You don't have to follow me." Snow knew that he did not want to see her looking disheveled, and so quickly nodded and headed to the washroom. When she got into the washroom, she looked at her perfect, immaculate self in the mirror, and was slowly relieved. To be honest, although she had been with Harvey for 2 years now, she had no idea what was in his mind at all. He was always patient as he corrected her manners, and would also patiently help her in her studies, allowing her to stay by his side. They would even go on a date occasionally, and he would look at her until he was lost in thought, yet he had never allowed her to touch him. Before him, she could not keep her cool and composure. Snow patted her cheeks with cold water, and only then did she let out a gentle smile as she slowly walked out of the washroom. Harvey had already left. She walked off with a casual pace as everyone gave her a strange look, with a lingering trace of pride around her. Shortly after Nicole left the cafeteria, a message suddenly popped up on her phone. "Nicole, come to the principal's office for a bit. I have something to talk to you." If anyone else were to see it, they would have been shocked. The message was from Mr. Ellison, and in terms of seniority, Mr. Ellison could have given her a direct command, but this message reeked of the desire to discuss and plead. Nicole frowned and responded, "What's the matter?" The reply came quickly. "I heard that Harvey caused you some trouble. I'll get him to apologize to you." Nicole looked at the message and recalled how Harvey Ellison acted in the cafeteria earlier. She did not like that sort of person, but it did not mean that she would cause him trouble because of this small matter. "I'm fine. There's no need for him to apologize to me. I still have a class later, so I'll pass." When Mr. Ellison saw the message on his phone, he let out a deep sigh. How could he not know Nicole's temper? This meant that she could not be bothered with his grandson at all. At this moment, a series of courteous knocks came from the principal's office door. Mr. Ellison calmed himself down as he said, "Come in." Harvey Ellison then pushed the door and entered the room. His face still bore the gentle smile, but when his eyes met Mr. Ellison's, some inexplicable emotions appeared. He walked up respectfully to Mr. Ellison and asked, "Grandpa, you wanted to see me?" He too had something to ask his grandpa, but he did not expect his grandpa to call him over first. Mr. Ellison looked on impassively at his grandson. In all respects, Harvey Ellison was perfect. Even when he stood before him with his head lowered at this moment, he still looked very stout, like a strong oak. Mr. Ellison gave a satisfied nod, and said somewhat seriously, "I heard that you listened to Snow, and went to look for trouble with Nicole?" When he heard Mr. Ellison asked him that, a chilly intent appeared in Harvey's eyes. He really did not expect his grandfather to bring her up before he even asked him about her. But he quickly snapped back as he shook his head and said gently, "Why would I? It's just that there's some misunderstanding between Nicole and Snow. Since the girls were unable to resolve it themselves, I got called over to mediate things." Mr. Ellison listened and then nodded. "That's good. You've met Nicole today. What do you think of her?" Thinking of Nicole, Harvey looked at Mr. Ellison and smiled. "I've met her. But she didn't speak much, so I didn't get to know her." Mr. Ellison hesitated for a moment, but he also knew that Harvey was telling the truth. Nicole was indeed rather distant in normal times. Yes, although she may be indifferent, but once you get to know her, you'll find out that she's a very kind girl. Of course, she was skilled in martial arts too. Mr. Ellison, however, did not know that Harvey had already witnessed Nicole's martial abilities, so he did not say the last part of the sentence. "Seems like you have quite a good impression of her, Grandpa." Harvey was now even more curious about Nicole's relationship with his grandfather. "Of course. Let me warn you, you must get along with her. Don't make enemies out of her because of Snow and Rain." Grandpa, before he could ask anything, his grandpa already tossed a warning his way. Could it be that Nicole was someone he could not afford to cross? "All right. Let's not talk about that anymore. Just remember what I've said and get along with her, okay?" Seeing his grandpa's serious face, Harvey could only nod his head, "Okay." Seeing that his grandson agreeing to that, Mr. Ellison was very satisfied. His tone then turned as he said to Harvey, "You've been managing the operations department of the company quite well. I'm preparing to hand over the marketing department to you as well, so get ready." Although he was only in his internship, Harvey had performed excellently, and it was time to let him handle more things. Harvey raised his head up suddenly as he looked at his grandfather in some disbelief. The marketing department was the heart of the Ellison Group. Back then, no matter how obedient he was, Mr. Ellison had never agreed to that, but now that he only needed to agree to get along with Nicole, and the old man was so pleased that he handed the entire department over to him. A look of shock flashed past Harvey's eyes, but his expression remained calm as he smiled and said, "Don't worry, Grandpa, I will double the HQ's sales in the next half." Mr. Ellison looked on as a smile appeared on his stern face. "Grandpa believes in you." Harvey got out of the principal's office and the smile on his face faded away as a thought came to his mind. To think that this Nicole was so capable, that the usually keen-eyed Mr. Ellison was so appreciative of her talents. It seems like he needed to rethink his plans now. As Harvey thought of that, he turned around and left. During revision at night, Nicole twirled her pen around as she looked at the set of exercises given by Ms. Emerson. The people around her snuck a glance at her from time to time, as if trying to discern something from her. Bradley Robertson whispered, "Nicole, did you not give Harvey any face at all?" Nicole did not even look up and said softly, "He asked me to apologize to Snow and Rain Riddle. I did not agree to that." Bradley did not know such a thing happened, and suddenly realized it as he heard Nicole say that, "I should have known that. Nicole, you are usually very reasonable, and you won't push someone into a corner. The problem is with Harvey Ellison." Bradley did not even bother calling Harvey names anymore and referred him directly by his name. This was something he had never done before. Nicole raised her eyebrows and looked at him, only for her to see Bradley hissing in anger. "It's obvious that Snow and Rain Riddle were looking for trouble with you. For her to cause such a havoc with just a photo, and here I thought she was a gentle person. It's all fake." Looking at him trying to defend her, Nicole felt a whiff of warmth inside her. "You're not worried that I might have actually bullied them?" Hearing her question, Bradley looked at her as if she was a fool. "With your personality, you'd act instead of talk. Why would you bully two helpless girls?" "Right, that sounded about right." Nicole rubbed her nose. She did not expect Bradley to know her that well. Bradley felt that when Harvey stood up for Snow, the latter's image was completely ruined for him, and he could not help but to mumble, "Man, was I blind when I thought him the same as Lloyd Holder? Lloyd is both handsome and kind, Harvey is nowhere close." Lulu, sitting in front, heard their discussion and ignored the teacher who was still teaching as she turned around and said, "Bradley, you're a man and you like Lloyd?" Bradley's face flushed a little. "A true handsome guy attracts both men and women. I admire Lloyd instead of straight up liking him, and you don't understand this? Seems like you don't like Lloyd as much as I do." Lulu gave him a disgusted look. "I've liked Lloyd for 6 years now, ever since his debut. You're no match for me." As both were rather excited, their voices were rather loud. The teacher noticed their little exchange at that moment and snorted, "Lulu, Bradley, what are you two talking about? Want to share it with the class?" Lulu spat her tongue out while Bradley quickly lowered his head. The two of them did not notice that when Nicole heard what they said, her pen-twirling hand paused for a bit. Lloyd Holder, who the two of them liked, was indeed the black horse in the entertainment industry of late. He debuted at 16 and was already a Golden Horse Award recipient at 18 with his movie, Breaking Blue. Now he was extremely popular, and had won countless of awards, be it domestically or internationally, a veritable superstar. He made this only be 22 years old, but everyone in the industry respects him. It was not because of his acting and abilities, but also because of his character and EQ. Everyone who came in touch with him were full of praise of Lloyd's charm, and many directors were effusive with praises after working with him, hoping that they would be able to work with him again. He was a person with impeccable manners and decorum, and it was also because of that immaculateness that he had no gossip about him since his debut. After enduring until class was over, Bradley packed up his bag and said, "Nicole, let's head out together?" Lulu said she wanted to go out of school to get some exercise books and left first. Nicole nodded as she casually packed her stuff. Suddenly, she heard a voice behind her. "Nicole, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said what I had said to you that day." Nicole turned around and noticed Jack Pearson was looking at her somewhat anxiously, with Gary Finley standing impassively behind the latter. Gary had fixed Jack up properly today and ordered the latter to apologize to Nicole. Jack was naturally reluctant, but he was worried that Nicole would straight up ignore him, so he quickly mouthed his apology while Nicole was packing up. Although Gary looked impassive, his clenched fist betrayed the turmoil inside. Looking at the girl's glance, Gary would be lying if he said he was not nervous. Nicole looked at the two, and her gaze finally fell on Jack's face as she let out a mischievous smile. "No need for that." With those words said, she picked up her bag and left with Bradley Robertson, leaving Jack Pearson standing there scratching his head. He dared not ask Gary directly, so he kicked Wayne in the shin and asked, "Say, did Nicole forgive me there or not?" Wayne was already slightly pissed when Jack called Nicole cold-blooded earlier, and immediately threw the latter a glare when he heard that. "Why are you asking me? Go ask Nicole." Gary too frowned. He knew that Nicole would not forgive him so easily. He picked up his books and said coldly, "Let's go. We need to revise. The math Olympiad was close, and he must not lose. He will tell Nicole his thoughts after clinching first place." Just as he entertained the thought, his hand phone suddenly vibrated. Gary pulled out his phone and placed it by his ear. When he heard what was spoken, his expression changed a little. "All right, I'll be right there." Immediately after, he walked out of the classroom in big strides, leaving Jack and Wayne to look at each other. Nicole and Bradley were walking leisurely towards the dorm, and Bradley was talking about Lloyd non-stop while Nicole listened on, without any reactions on her face. Bradley was so colorful it was clear that he really liked Lloyd Holder. At this moment, a rather blurry silhouette appeared beneath the street lamp, as if it was a person who was closely hugging the wall. Nicole immediately noticed that and consciously led Bradley as they suddenly took a corner. It was an open space, and seeing that he was without cover, the person gritted his teeth as he pretended to be unperturbed as he followed the two of them, acting like he was looking at the scenery. A cold glint flashed past Nicole's face as she suddenly turned around and gave Bradley a shock. "Nicole, the heck? Bloody hell." Nicole darted out like a thunderbolt and instantly disappeared before Bradley's eyes. The person tailing them was clearly a professional. He sensed something was not right the moment Nicole turned her head and immediately fled. And it seemed like he was well versed with the layout of the Royal Creek Institute. With a couple of turns, he disappeared into the darkness. Looking at the fork before her and thinking that the person disappeared after he turned into this corner, she felt a little irritable. Failure was a rare thing for her, and she was too careless this time. She never thought that someone would dare to tail her so brazenly inside the Royal Creek Institute. As she thought of this, her expression turned a little glum. As she turned around to retrace her path, she took out her phone and sent a message. "Someone is tailing me. You guys be careful." Bradley had not responded yet, so Nicole put away her phone and saw the former standing there looking at her in a stupor. Even when he had seen Nicole strike more than one, he was still amazed every time he witnessed it. He had never seen someone be so fast before. Nicole walked over and patted him on the shoulder. "It's nothing, let's go." The road here was rather quiet, and aside from Bradley, no one else saw that happened. He swallowed his saliva and then asked, "Nicole, who were you chasing after just now?" Nicole shook her head. "Nothing, it was my mistake." Bradley gave her a curious look, but seeing that she was not inclined to speak, he did not press the issue. After sending Bradley to the dormitory entrance, Nicole turned around to leave. Bradley was a little surprised as he asked, "Nicole, not going back to the dorm?" She shook her head. "I'm going to the cafe." Bradley suddenly realized that Nicole was probably worried about this safety, and that was the reason why she escorted him back. He could not help but to feel thankful for that. For a girl to escort him back, it was just too embarrassing. As the two parted, Nicole walked towards the school gate as she wondered who would be so bold as to make a move right inside Royal Creek Institute. As she walked, she soon arrived at the cafe. She was sure now that the most dangerous place on earth was also the safest. If she comes here, Jared Johnston will have even less cause to suspect her. However, she had not much time to think. She wanted to find a proper place to study and to help Austin and the others revise. Since she would have to face a torrent of gossips in school, might as well come here instead. She had not come for a few days now, and when she stepped in, she noticed the usual waiter was not here today. But for some reason Jared Johnston was in the house. Nicole's expression darkened. She had occasionally suspected, was Jared Johnston actually waiting for her here? Otherwise, why would she keep running into him every time here? At this moment, Jared was resting on a seat not too far away from the door. The moment he saw her enter, his eyes lit up as he immediately waved at her. For some reason, it felt like he had been waiting for her for a long while now. Nicole pushed the door open and asked, "Why are you here again?" Her slightly revolted look and tone made Jared feel like he just had a bucket of iced water poured on him. He had waited for her for so many days now, and she was revolted when she saw him? Suppressing the gloom in his chest, he smiled coldly. "This is my establishment, of course I'll come when I'm free." His eyes were already attractive to begin with, and with it slightly curving now, it looked even more so. Nicole could not help but be dumbfounded as she looked at him. But as she heard what he said, she frowned slightly. "Why do I feel like a CEO, like you have too much time in your hands?" Jared looked at Nicole's cold, glistening eyes, and did not say anything. He had sent someone to follow her earlier, and she very quickly noticed the person's movements. If he was a tad bit slower, he would have been caught by her. Not only that, but Claus also said that Nicole's senses against being followed was very keen, and she was definitely not just any student. Jared was very aware how skilled his men were, and to think that Claus almost fell victim to Nicole. A meaning look appeared in his eyes as he looked at Nicole before him. The more he got in touch with her, the more he found her interesting. "Forget about that, order what you want." Jared deftly placed the menu before her as a couple of stray hairs fell before his eyes, hiding the emotions in them. Nicole did not hold back either. "A cup of cappuccino, thank you." Jared looked into her eyes and could not help but chuckle. Although she had drank many of his coffees, the one she liked seemed to only be cappuccino. Jared immediately took the order, his poise elegant, and his every moment graceful. It was a noble aura that was preternatural. As Nicole looked at him, she felt that she was really blind. Why did she get tangled up with this guy in the first place? Letting out a sigh, she stopped bothering him as she walked towards her usual seat and pulled out her exercise books to work on them. Jared knew that she did not like him approaching her, so he could only look at her from a distance, with a tinge of discouragement in his heart. She was the only woman who did not proactively approach him, but instead she was revolted at the idea of him approaching her. At this moment, there was some commotion outside as a few students in the originally quiet cafe started whispering to one another. "Isn't that Austin Woods? Why is he here? Seeing that Nicole is here too, I guess he's here for tuition." In an instant, many curious gazes came from across the cafe. Nicole looked up slothfully, and the few Royal Creek Institute students quickly shut up under her rather emotionless gaze. They finally understood why so many were afraid of Nicole. A glance alone was enough to make someone dare not take a breath. If she was standing before them, they probably would have already turned around and flee. Nicole could not be bothered with what was in their mind. At this moment, Austin had brought with him his group of buddies, and the cafe was instantly overcrowded. When he saw Nicole, Austin's eyes lit up. "Boss." Nicole gave him a glance. "What's going on? Why were there so many people here?" Austin knew what she wanted to ask and immediately said, "Boss, these bunch here wants to listen to your lecture, so they came here themselves." Everyone looked at him as he blathered about, not daring to speak up. They were clearly here because Austin wanted to make a grand scene for his boss, so that's why all of them had to come, and not a single one was exempted. They too had no idea if she was really going to teach them. Going by Nicole's standards, would their total grades collectively fall by another 20 ranks? Austin did not care. He was at last place already anyway, so he might as well let Nicole do as she please, but the rest of them still had a standard to uphold. When Nicole looked at the reluctant faces of these people, she said softly, "Those who wants to stay can stay, and I'll help to the best of my ability. Those who want to leave can leave." She did not have that much energy to help so many, and the only reason she decided to help Austin was she took pity on him. When they heard Nicole say that a number who were originally reluctant to come turned their gaze to Austin. He then looked at her and whispered, "Boss, do you really want to do this?" Nicole nodded. If the others did not want to believe her, then she had no need to do her best for them. Seeing that she was serious, Austin raised his hand. "Leave now if you want to leave. If you don't want to listen to boss lecture, then you lot don't have to be under me anymore." Austin thought that everyone would stay, but who knew, the moment he said that a commotion immediately erupted. Many had long been dissatisfied that Austin being all out of sorts as the school bully just for Nicole, and now he even got stark raving mad that he wanted to get into the top 20? Isn't that a straight-up daydream? They had been busy studying for the past few days, and that had gravely violated the original intention of them joining Austin's camp. However, as Austin pressured them, they dare not verbalize their complaints. At this moment, Austin himself actually said that they could leave if they did not want to listen to him. Many looked at one another and turned around to leave. Bullshit. They did not want a boss like Nicole who was a nobody. Her grades were poor, so who wants to listen to her? Austin too was a fool for him to really obey this woman. The two of them can go crazy for all they care, and they want no part of it. In an instant, only 5 to 6 people who had been following Austin all these while remained from the originally massive group. Austin did not expect those people who had been calling each other brothers to be so callous about their friendship. And to think that he had been helping them a lot, either matters big or small. Yet when he really wanted to do something, these bunch repaid him in such a way. Among those who left were buddies that Austin usually play ball with. They gave Austin a wandering glance, and saw the latter's disbelieving look, his eyes full of vengefulness. Austin had always been stepping on them all this while. How could they not be gleeful when they see him lose face like this? A school bully that would call a girl boss? It was high time for a change now. As they thought of this, the few of them left gleefully, and did not forget to throw Austin a provocative middle finger while they were at it. Austin looked on, his chest heaving in anger. He smashed his fist against the wall, and his eyes felt misty. Austin Woods, how could you be so blind? Nicole looked on as the group dispersed. The few that remained were familiar faces, and they were those who had followed Austin around every day, and she had some measure of them. It seems like only these few were sincere towards Austin and were not taking advantage of his status for something. The remaining few looked at Austin, who was fuming and sad at the same time, and then looked at Nicole, who sat there calmly, seemingly having predicted this to happen, and asked, "Boss Austin, what should we do now?" Austin did not speak. Instead, Nicole did. "Go upstairs. There are private rooms there. Find one and get in. I'll be there in a moment." When Austin heard that, he looked at Nicole in astonishment. He did not expect that even with so few left, Nicole would still abide by their agreement. After all, he had always thought that the reason Nicole was willing to be his boss was because he had considerable influence in school. Yet even after this farce, she was totally unperturbed and was still ready to help him with his studies. What Nicole saw was not his power, but him as a person. Thinking of this, Austin was really glad that he insisted on taking Nicole as his boss and had never given up on that. Otherwise, he would not have been able to see everything as they were now. Austin clenched his fist, and he turned to look at the remaining few as he said with a rumbling voice, "Thank you all for staying. From today onwards, I will only take you guys as my brothers. The others can go screw themselves." The few looked at him, a look of determination appeared in their eyes. All of them followed Austin since the beginning, so naturally they were unlike those people. "Austin, don't worry, man. We are with you." Austin gave them a grateful look and then turned towards Nicole. "Boss, thank you for letting me see clearly who my true friends are." He gave Nicole a deep bow, and as she looked at him, she said softly, "You can do without that baggage, they'll just hold you back, leaving you deep in the quagmire. Austin, congratulations on escaping that swamp of misery." Austin was taken aback. What Nicole said was true. Before those people got around him, he was not so arrogant. It was them who were instigating him, saying that a school bully should act like a tyrant, a school bully shouldn't study hard. Only the school beauty was a match for him. That was why he was causing trouble all over, all to prove that he was powerful. As he thought of that, a contemplative look appeared in Austin's eyes. Wasn't what Nicole was doing now helping him to get rid of those stinkers around him? Seeing that he was deep in thought, Nicole did not rush him. She lowered her head and packed her stuff up as she prepared to go to the second floor with them. As she turned around, she saw Jared Johnston standing not too far away, his eyes locked onto her. Jared noticed that she was looking at him, and a look of displeasure appeared in his eyes. He had thought that she despised all men like she did with him. What was so good about that punk from the Woods family? Why is she so nice to them? The more he thought about it, the more pissed off he got. What happened to him lately? Why was Nicole affecting his mood so? Seeing his rather miffed look, she frowned a little. What is wrong with that guy? Why is he looking at her like that? But she still did not ask anything, and instead just placed another order. "Add a cup of coffee for each of my friends there. Bill it to my tab." After that, she turned around, carried her bag, and headed upstairs. When Jared saw her going upstairs just like that, he was even more pissed off. Did she just take him for a servant? And to add an order of coffee for each of them? Thinking back that she would not even treat him to a meal, why was she so generous with these bunch of hooligans? He was the CEO of the Johnston Group, and he was no match for a few louts? Jared's expression got colder and colder, so much so that Max did not even dare to take a deep breath. "Mr. Johnston, I'll go get the coffee." Jared glared at him, hissing, "No. Let them die of thirst." As Nicole went upstairs, one of Austin's buddies waved at her from the second room to the right. "Boss, over here." She increased her pace and entered the room. When she saw Austin's expression had returned to normal, she knew that he had listened to what she said and was somewhat satisfied. She walked to the front and looked on at the books spread out on the table. The books were so clean like they were new, and she frowned slightly. After Austin digested Nicole's words, the anger within him not only disappeared, but he instead felt somewhat fortunate. If not for the boss's words splashing cold water over him, he probably would not have realized what he had just freed himself from. When he saw Nicole frowning while looking at his book, he thought that she too had questions she did not understand. Austin immediately pulled out a chair to let her sit, and then he let out a teasing smile. "Boss, look, all of us have pretty crappy foundation. How about you lower your standards a little, and let us at least get into the top 20 from bottom instead?" Nicole threw him a glance when she heard that. Although her glance was faint, Austin immediately understood what she meant and said bitterly, "All right, forget I said that." Only then did Nicole retracted her gaze. She took their textbooks over and quickly flipped through them. The entire process took about 10 minutes before she picked up her pen and circled a good number of points on the book as she said succinctly, "Memorize them." She then pulled out a few sheets of paper and wrote something on it. No one dared to disobey her and hurriedly took their textbooks to memorize the points. After an hour, she handed the sheets of paper she had written onto them. The group had only just memorized the points and had their books taken away. A sheet of paper was now before them as they looked at Nicole in dismay. She returned the gaze and raised her eyebrows slightly as she looked at them. "What are you looking at me for? Answer the question." The few lowered their head and found that on the paper was a simplified test Nicole had made. The questions on the paper were all related to the points she got them to memorize earlier. These people did not usually study much and could rarely see a question they could do. So, their eyes immediately lit up as they started answering the question. As they wrote, they were amazed. Boss's handwriting was really pretty. Nicole's handwriting was different from them. They looked extremely calm and very stylish, which were very comfortable to look at. Nicole watched on as they answered the question, and about half an hour later, she took the papers to mark them. The few of them looked at her with confidence and were quite assured with their results. Nicole looked up at them and said, "Do you guys think you've done well?" Her voice was calm, but for some inexplicable reason gave them a feeling that a storm was coming. The few looked at each other and someone mustered his guts as he said, "Boss, I think I did pretty well." Under Nicole's gaze, he quietly swallowed the latter part of the sentence back. Nicole let out a half smile. "Austin did the best amongst all of you. He got half the question right." When she said that, everyone looked at Nicole in astonishment. All of them thought they could get full marks. Austin, on the other hand, was rather flattered. He did not expect to be doing the best among all of them, and after snapping back he looked on gleefully at the rest. Although everyone's results were pretty crap, but Austin was the worst of the lot. Yet, now Nicole said he did the best, and not only that built up Austin's confidence, but it also sparked the fighting spirit in the rest. Seeing that everyone was looking at her with a burning gaze, a glint appeared in Nicole's eyes. She handed the question sheets back and explained to everyone where they went wrong. She pointed out the traps in the question, and how to read the question to have a higher chance in getting it right. After listening to Nicole's explanation, all of them realized what went wrong as they hissed at the silly mistakes they made. They were just tad bit away from actually scoring points. Everyone was now inspired. Nicole's clear methods aside, her thought process was very different too, and she will give examples, making a very complicated matter simple enough, so much so that total knuckleheads like them could understand the question. They could not help but to start doubting the news they saw in the school forum. Whoever said Nicole was bad at studies. What they saw now was nothing like that. After digesting this part of the content, Nicole started to circling points on the textbooks again, repeating the process of asking them to memorize the topic. In the process, everyone had a new understanding of the boring knowledge in the book. They even felt that there were interesting connections between different contents in the book, and these were inseparable from the order of points Nicole made them go through. Nicole went through the textbooks and realized that the reason Austin and co. could not understand it because the contents in the textbook varied in difficulty, and the sequence was even more chaotic. Some parts were pretty basic, but they were placed after much more difficult contents. This inevitably increased the students' learning difficulty and tore away the graduality and smoothness between knowledge bits. The topics that Nicole got them to look at were slightly more difficult than the last, but they were logical connections between the two topics. That made the learning process particularly easy, and it was easier to get them into the groove. Plus, the questions she put forward for each topic, alongside a detailed explanation, made it deeply attractive to everyone. Soon, they were getting more and more parts right, and as the sense of accomplishment swelled, they were even more committed to learning. Nicole was so enthusiastic that she did not notice that from the opposite side of their room, someone was looking through the glass at them. Jared was drinking his coffee as he looked at Nicole surrounded by the guys. A look of envy appeared in his eyes. Although those lot were afraid of Nicole, they were still respectful to her and kept a polite distance from her. Yet, when he looked at the men beside her, he felt extremely displeased. He wanted to leave this place, but he could not avert his eyes off them. He just kept staring at them, seemingly afraid they would do something that will cross the line. "Mr. Johnston, it's late already. Normally at this hour, Jared would have long gone back to rest. I'll have my dinner here," he said menacingly, without even looking at Max Graham. Max was shocked. "Is there a problem?" No. Max did not dare to say more and hurried downstairs to prepare the Western food. Inside Nicole's room, the revision still went on in a lively atmosphere. All of them were in the mood to study, so much so they forgot that their coffee was still not served. Nicole led them as they proceeded with the 5th round of revisions. They had pretty much completed a textbook, and looking at her watch, it was about enough for today, and they will not be able to process any more. So, she closed the book and said faintly, "We'll stop here today. Do you guys have anything you don't understand?" The lot looked at the questions with enthusiasm, clearly not expecting this to be over. They each shook their head saying, "No. Boss, you're really amazing. We actually understood everything you taught us." Their boss here was a true talent, and they really did not understand why she scored 0 the last time. "Yeah, I think boss is a much better teacher than Miss Thompson. Her teaching is shit aside, she even looked down at us poor performers. She does nothing aside from criticizing us all day. Boss, you seem to have some kind of magic, it's literally the same thing, but why is it more fun learning from you, and we actually understood it better and quicker too? You dumbass, what else is there? Boss is a straight-up goddess." They had originally accepted her as the boss because of Austin, and they were in fact giving face to Austin, being his followers. But now, each of them looked at Nicole with bright, gleaming eyes. Austin was right. It was their luck that Nicole was their boss. If this goes on, they might actually be able to make it into the top 20. Looking at these lot, their eyes brimming with enthusiastic light, a smile gradually appeared on Nicole's face. It seems like they were not totally hopeless. It was almost 9 o'clock before Jared saw Nicole being escorted out by the bunch of louts. Every single one of those punks that were friendly with Nicole could not help but to show their admiration and respect for her. He crossed his arms over his chest as he watched on, wishing that he could chase all of them out this instant. The group went downstairs, and as Nicole paid the bill, someone suddenly said, "I want to get into the top 20. I want Nicole to be our boss for all time." Austin looked at that buddy of his. That guy had always opposed him taking Nicole as his boss and had grumbled who knows how many times to him in private. He went forward and gave that buddy a punch. "Now you know how wise I am, huh?" The rest of them nodded silently as they heard that. At this moment, glints of light appeared in all of their eyes. All of them recognized Nicole as their boss. Having reached an accord with the blokes, Nicole took her card back and was about to turn away and leave, but she instead saw Jared Johnston there. He was actually still here. And he was staring weirdly at her. She found it difficult to understand his behavior, so she gave him a glare before leaving without even saying anything. Jared looked on as she left with the group, and one could only wonder how miffed he was. As he gnashed his teeth, Jared asked Max, "Is my standing in her heart lower than a bunch of gangsters?" Max was stunned. So that was why Jared's face has been dark and gloomy for the past 2 to 3 hours. Is Mr. Johnston feeling jealous? But wasn't he the one that said he wanted to break off the engagement? I have no idea what he is thinking. Max dared not say anything at all. After saying goodbye to Austin and the others, Nicole left for the dormitory. Along the way, she kept wondering. As far as she had not gotten any information yet, supposing the person tailing her was someone very skilled. A thought appeared in her mind as she had a feeling that the person did not harbor any malice, otherwise she would not be so merciful. So, she was in no hurry to find out who the person was. Since the person wants to play a game of cat and mouse, she would of course oblige. As she got to the ground floor of the dormitory, Nicole ran into someone totally unexpected there. There was a very tall cherry blossom tree at the ground floor of Royal Creek Institute's dormitory. At this moment, it was not the flowering season. The green leaves created a shade, and Harvey Ellison was standing right under the tree. His entire person was covered by the shade, his expression indiscernible. When Nicole saw him, she could not help but frown as she stopped walking. Harvey too noticed her as he looked up. Nicole then saw his bright-as-day smile, and a hint of irritation appeared in her heart. Harvey was already walking towards her. His pace was measured, and it was only when he got before her that he said softly, "Nicole, I was waiting for you." Nicole looked at his figure and the smile on his face as she faintly said, "Stop smiling." Just looking at him pissed her off. Harvey did not expect her first sentence would be that and could not help but to be taken aback for a moment. A slight gloom appeared in his eyes. "Why does it always seem like you hate me?" Many gazes, both overt and covert, looked over as many took out their phones and started taking shots of them. It must be said that both Nicole and Harvey looked very good together. One was cold, while another warm, and they seemed to be in some kind of inexplicable harmony. Many were gossiping about them in whispers, and all of the girls were looking at Nicole with seething hatred and envy. Why was Nicole getting the attention of so many of the cool guys in the campus? If it was Snow and Rain Riddle, so be it, but the person speaking so gently to her was Harvey Ellison. They already had enough of Snow alone, and now a Nicole pops up. She was nothing, so what right does she have to win Harvey's blue eyes? Just because of her pretty face? Nicole noticed the menacing gazes as she coldly looked at Harvey before her. "Can you tell if I hate you or not? What do you want?" She could clearly feel that he was pestering her not because of the matter with Snow and Rain Riddle, but there was something else that she had yet to realize. After seeing Nicole showing some emotions to him, and no longer acting like she could not even see him, Harvey looked at her bright eyes as he felt an extreme surge of excitement within him, so much so that his heartbeat went wild. He then looked at Nicole and let out a rare, genuine smile. Seeing him not speaking, Nicole frowned and said, "If you want me to apologize to Snow and Rain, you can forget about it." After all, Harvey was the grandson of Mr. Ellison, so she did not believe that with Harvey's insight and intelligence that he could not tell what was going on. Some matters he could just find out after some cursory investigation. When Harvey heard what she said, he was a little shocked. He then responded in a friendly tone, "I've only agreed to speak up for Snow in the afternoon. I have to be a man of my words, don't I? The reason I'm looking for you now is to talk of some personal matters." His tone was cocksure, as if the incident this afternoon was just him completing a task with nary any personal feelings attached. Nicole looked at him deeply in the eyes. Is that even possible? Everyone would have a sense of selfishness in what they do, no? What personal matter? Harvey looked at her being all vigilant, and a hint of delight appeared in his eyes. That's it, she should be showing him more emotions. He smiled gently, his eyes like the azure sea, luring people like a siren's song to drown within it. It's a very simple personal matter. Harvey looked firmly at Nicole in the eyes as he slowly bent over and elegantly extended a hand to her. "Nicole, would you be my girlfriend?" His voice was low, yet it sounded like a thunderclap. He did not actually lower his voice, and so everyone heard it loud and clear. And instantly, a commotion erupted. Did I hear that right? I heard Harvey wants Nicole as his girlfriend. I also heard that. What's going on? What about Snow Riddle then? If I'm not wrong, Harvey never actually acknowledged Snow Riddle as his girlfriend, right? Then it's Snow who took herself as Harvey's girlfriend. Now that's spicy, getting slapped right in the face there. Is no one gonna scold Nicole here? She's the one seducing Harvey. Nicole ignored those voices as she looked at Harvey Ellison standing before her. If I'm not wrong, this is our third meeting, yes? Harvey seemingly knew that she was about to say, and his extended hand stayed there as he smiled and said gently, "We can always slowly cultivate our relationship." That was to say, even if he had no feelings for her, he could still ask her to be his girlfriend just because of something. He was the type that would do anything to achieve his goals. Nicole's gaze towards Harvey turned colder and colder as a layer of frost slowly appeared in her eyes. She really did not expect a good man like Mr. Ellison would have such a promiscuous grandson. Get lost. If he did not leave now, she was going to punch him. When Harvey heard her words, the elegant smile on his face froze. He looked at Nicole in disbelief, seemingly not understanding what she had said as he asked with a puzzled tone, "What did you say?" Seeing that he still did not leave, Nicole could not be bothered to exchange words with him as she swung a fist at him. Her martial skills were no joke, and Harvey had witnessed her practice before, so he knew how strong the punch was. He immediately dodged backwards, his body bending backwards as he barely dodged the punch. He looked at her in consternation. "Nicole, what's the meaning of this?" Everyone was stunned silly by this unexpected scene. They never expected Nicole to reject Harvey. Rejecting him aside, she seemed like she wanted to beat him up too. If it wasn't for the fact that Harvey had learned Taekwondo before, the punch would have landed square on him. Seeing him dodge, Nicole did not press the attack as she glared coldly at him and spat a warning. "Never show yourself before me ever again." As she said that, she turned towards the staircase of the dormitory. Everyone looked at her back in shock, and no one dared to say a word. She was cold and powerful. No one could stop her. Harvey too was looking at her in a stupor, his thoughts now in a flux. Her gaze earlier had pierced him straight in the heart, causing him to feel a numbness akin to an electric shock. He covered his face and actually started sniggering. Interesting. No one had ever made him act like this before. This Nicole. She was really driving him insane. And everyone who looked at him was even more stupefied. Harvey Ellison almost ate a punch, yet not only he was not angry, he was laughing instead. They could clearly sense that this laughter was not the same as the shallow smile he usually lets out. It had a thick sense of elation, as if he had encountered something that made him really happy. Harvey looked at the crowd, and the elation in his voice did not fade away as he gently said, "So sorry for the embarrassing scene earlier." After that, he slowly smoothed the wrinkles on his shirt as he left with a swift pace. Many just stood there as they had never seen Harvey Ellison acting like that before. He had always been gentle and polite. He was always measured and would not laugh out loud like this. Very soon, someone posted the footage onto the school's forum, and the entire comment section immediately bent out of shape. What the hell? What's going on? So, Harvey confessed to Nicole? This seems like she played a game of dare and lost. Didn't you see how flustered Nicole was that she wanted to hit Harvey? This Nicole Wallace sure is a bitch. Harvey and Snow are a thing, right? What is she doing there, seducing Harvey? When Nora saw this bizarre post, she was extremely jealous. Jared Johnston being still infatuated with Nicole aside, Harvey too had only just got back today, and he went to confess to her that very night? As she saw Nicole taking the spotlight again, she was furious. She looked away and immediately forwarded the post to Snow. "Nicole, you are looking for trouble again, so just you wait, you'll soon be dealt with." She will hang back and await the spoils. Once Snow Riddle was done with Nicole, she will be able to get Jared Johnston for herself. Snow was happily applying a mask at home. When she thought of how Harvey stood up for her today, she was particularly elated. Her phone suddenly rang, and she hummed as she clicked on the link. After entering the school's forum, Snow thought today's trending topic would be her Harvey. What she did not expect to see was a video of Harvey and Nicole on the homepage of the forum. When she opened the link in surprise, she actually heard Harvey asking Nicole if she wanted to be his girlfriend. "Damn you, Nicole Wallace. You dare seduce my man." With a roar, she smashed her new phone onto the ground. She had worked so hard to stand beside Harvey, all for the fact that he could provide her prestige. Yet he had never acknowledged her at all. She always persuaded herself that Harvey just hasn't gotten around to say anything. But he, after all, had her, and that was more than enough. Yet that video completely crushed Snow Riddle's self-deception. It was not that Harvey did not know, he just did not want her to be his girlfriend. Him standing up to Nicole Wallace today was probably to get close to her. And for him to confess later that night, where does she stand now then? Snow was so apoplectic she lost her mind. Her biggest backer in school and at home was Harvey. Karen had been pestering her every day about her progress with Harvey, saying that she must capture Harvey's heart, and that Dylan's promotion relied on her. Although she did not directly say no problem, but it was already almost at that stage. Karen had already told everyone around her that, and all eyes were on her. Plus, she had long let out news in school, hinting that both Harvey and her were an item, leaving no one in doubt. But now, Harvey was the one that ruined everything. She sat on her princess bed, and when she thought of how things would end after Harvey leaves her, she was so nervous that she gnawed her intricately manicured nails into pieces. It was all because of Nicole Wallace. Be it the brothers of the Riddle family, or Austin Woods or Gary Finley, all of them seemingly lost their minds when they see Nicole, and now Harvey too, after seeing her just a couple of times, was acting strange. Everything was Nicole's fault. Nicole Wallace, that wench, not only did she seduce Gary Finley, but she also laid her filthy hands on Harvey. Despicable. When she thought of this, a brutal glint appeared in her eyes. She cannot just stand by and watch as Harvey leaves her. It was late at night, and at this moment Gary was sitting inside the school security department, watching the codes jumping out on the screen before him. After school, the manager of the security department gave him a call, saying that there was something seemed strange with the monitoring system of the girls' dormitory, yet they could not find out what it was. Knowing that the Finley family was in charge of the school's security, so the manager gave him a call and asked to have a look. After all, Gary was a computer expert. Gary's fingers tapped quickly on the keyboard. He could sense that something was wrong, yet all of the surveillance footage just appeared there quietly before him. The program he deployed did not detect any issues, only at the end of the surveillance footage a day ago that he found a split-second blank airtime, about 0.01 seconds. When he saw this blank airtime, the look in his eyes gradually changed from contemplative to disbelief. When he clicked on the very last moment of the footage and processed it using the highest efficiency parser and slowing it down to 250 times, the thing on the footage finally appeared before him. Gary looked at the distorted letters from the excessive parsing, and a shocking gleam appeared in his eyes. When the manager saw his expression, he could not help but to poke his head over in curiosity. Yet on the snow-white screen was a small line of Esperion in the lower right corner, as if a letter writer leaving his signature on it. "Just sing a song." The manager looked weirdly at the sentence and said rather speechlessly, "The hell is that? Gary, did you manage to find out what it is?" Gary looked at the sentence and suddenly remembering something as he was indescribably agitated. A professional had infiltrated the school system. But no one would understand if he blathered about it, so he could only glance at the manager and closed the interface, saying, "It's fine. I've added another layer of protection in the security system. If someone tries to break in, I'll be able to monitor it on my end. Don't worry." The manager nodded in confusion and then reacting as he looked at Gary's departing silhouette and shouted, "Hey punk! You haven't told me if you found anything or not." Gary did not even look back but waved his hand at the manager from a distance. Seeing him like this, the manager knew that there was no problem, and he let out a curse. "That punk." Gary sat uneasy all the way back home, and the driver asked in confusion, "Master Gary, what's the matter? Could there be nails on the seat?" Gary was very excited after getting hold of a secret, and when he heard that he felt that the driver was trying to pry into his secrets, so he gave the latter a glare. "Just focus on the road." The driver gave him a quizzical look and noticed that the traffic light had turned green, so he turned his head around and drove. After reaching the Finley family's manor, Gary immediately rushed upstairs. Ryder Finley was holding a video conference, and when he saw Gary in such a hurry, he quickly asked, "Gary, what's the matter?" Gary's voice then came from the second floor. "I've finally got my idol's signature." Ridley shook his head helplessly as he asked his assistant to continue. Inside his room, Gary turned on his laptop again as he looked at the tiny words over and over again. In the world of hackers, even the most novice of script kiddies knew that the Esperion word in black on white background is the signature of the legend in the hacking world, Lucifer. Gary excitedly looked at the page before him, and 20 seconds later, the page flickered as it was automatically destroyed. A top-level hacker has his own pride. He would boldly declare that he had done this, but he would never leave such an obvious clue to any computer that wanted to trace his details. Gary looked at the gradually disappearing page, but the smile on his lips grew wider. He could almost be sure that Lucifer was a Royal Creek Institute student, and the person must have used the computer in the institute to do this. This alone will allow him to trace Lucifer back. It was just that there were over 10,000 people in the Royal Creek Institute, students and staff included. Trying to find a person's information without their personal characteristics is just too difficult. Plus, why did Lucifer wanted to pull up the surveillance footage of Royal Creek Institute's girls' dormitory? Gary could not figure out why was he doing this as he lay on his bed and pondered the matter.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.